Hello there. Well, India continues to deal with multiple crises. All of it seem to be hitting at the same time. The crisis in the economy after coronavirus, the problem of the locusts, which hopefully will resolve itself. And then, of course, what seem to be the big two at the present moment, which are the coronavirus, obviously, and also China and the actions and its aggression on the border. And by the way, China's aggression is not just aimed at India and not just in Ladakh. China very clearly seems to be taking advantage of the coronavirus pandemic to push around as many of its neighbors as it possibly can, and also to tighten its control on Hong Kong. And there is going to be a certain blowback to this at some point. I think the world is at some point going to sit back and say, at a time when the entire world was dealing with a crisis, China decided to take advantage of that situation to try and bully its neighbors and trying to strengthen its own control in areas like Hong Kong. And we'll have to see what the outcome of that is going to be eventually. Today, on the China question, we did have the United States, in a sense, stepping inside. We've heard Trump tweeting about wanting to mediate. And then Trump said, I've spoken to Narendra Modi and he's not very happy about the situation. Of course, the Indian government had to clarify that there's been no conversation for a long time. But China very clearly very high on everybody's mind right now. And that's even while the battle against coronavirus continues and we continue to monitor the cases that are coming out. And we start to worry about data increasingly, making sure that it is correct. Today, for example, a spike in deaths announced in Delhi. A spike in deaths, that 69 deaths that presumably have piled up over the last 30 days, all being announced today. So let's just take a look at all the big news stories that are catching our attention.
I did speak to Prime Minister Modi. He's not in a good mood about what's going on with China.
India on Friday rejected US President Donald Trump's claim that he spoke with Prime Minister Modi on the India-China border standoff. Hours after Trump said he had spoken to Prime Minister Modi and said that he is not in a good mood on what is going on in China, top government sources said that there's been no recent contact between the two leaders, news agency ANI reported. The last conversation between them was on 4th of April 2020 on the subject of hydroxychloroquine, ANI reported, quoting sources. The MEA on Thursday has also made it clear that India is directly in touch with China through established mechanisms and diplomatic contacts, rejecting Trump's mediation offer. In first response to the border standoff, the Chinese Defense Ministry has said that the situation on the India-China border is stable and controllable, the Hindustan Times has reported. Without direct reference to US President Donald Trump's offer to mediate, the ministry said India and China have the wherewithal to resolve the situation through established communication mechanisms. The Chinese border troops are committed to maintaining peace and tranquility in the border areas, Defense Ministry spokesperson stated. With the number of coronavirus cases crossing 1.6 lakh on Thursday, India is now the 9th worst hit country by the deadly virus infection. The number of deaths has crossed China's official count, data from America's Johns Hopkins University showed. India has reported nearly double the number of cases in China at 84,106. India also surpassed China with as many as 4,711 deaths compared to 4,638 by Thursday night, the data showed. Other countries with more cases than India are US, Brazil, Russia, UK, Spain, Italy, France and Germany. As Lockdown 4.0 draws to an end on May 31st, Home Minister Amit Shah met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday to discuss the road ahead. The meet comes a day after Shah spoke to various chief ministers and asked for feedback on the post-lockdown strategy. Reports quoting government sources said Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah held discussions on a strategy on the shutdown and weighed how to restart economic activity amid a steady spurt in virus cases. India has recorded its highest ever single-day spike in coronavirus cases with over 7,400 new infections. In the last 24 hours, the number of coronavirus cases in India went up by 7,466 to over 1,65,000, including close to 90,000 active cases, according to the Health Ministry data on Friday morning. The country also witnessed 175 deaths in the last 24 hours due to the pathogen, to take total fatalities to 4,706. Over 71,000 people have recovered from COVID infection so far.
Delhi's COVID-19 death tally has jumped by 82 in the last 24 hours. due to the inclusion of 69 deaths that were reported late, Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia said on Friday. He said 13 deaths occurred on Friday while the remaining 69 took place in the last 34 days and were reported late. The total deaths due to COVID-19 in Delhi has mounted to 398 so far. There had been reports of death figure mismatch between Delhi government numbers and those from hospitals and crematoriums. As the fourth phase of lockdown comes to an end on May 31st, West Bengal Chief Minister has announced easing for certain restrictions. All places of worship, Mandir, Masjid, Gurudwara will be allowed to open from June 1st, but more than 10 people will not be allowed to assemble at these places. The state has also given permission to public and private sectors to open up with 100% strength from June 8th. Days after 9 deaths were reported on board Shramik special trains, the Indian Railways on Friday appealed to people not to travel on these trains if they are suffering from pre-existing health conditions. At least 9 passengers were reported dead on May 27th over a span of 48 hours on board the Migrant trains, with the railway stating that all of them had health conditions. Persons with comorbidities, pregnant women, children below the age of 10 and persons above 65 years of age may avoid travel by rail except when it is essential, the appeal stated.
A survey by NGO ActionAid India on the state of migrant workers who have returned to their homes in Bihar has revealed some worrying facts. It says more than 50% of those surveyed are only having one meal a day. The debt situation has worsened for around 70% of the workers, and less than 1% of them feel that their savings are enough. Also, none of the workers reported receiving any kind of cash assistance during the lockdown while they were stranded. The survey was conducted on 177 workers who had returned from various parts of the country to 15 districts of Bihar.